Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's noon Pacific while you're seeing this, 3 p.m. Eastern. And even though I'm actually on an airplane headed to marketing profs, you, through the magic of video, will get to talk with me and my friend Jason Schimmel, who is here to talk to you about how he uses Claude in Perplexity in his content marketing workflows. So, Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. And for folks who don't know you, even though you're an OG part of this content chat community, go ahead and take a minute to tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So first off, Erica, thank you for having me on the show again. It has been far too long.
Yes, the last time you were on Content Chat, we were still typing, I think.
I believe so. Yeah, Twitter was still called Twitter. That
The old days.
that's the good old days.
That's
If only
right.
we knew how good we had it.
We had no idea.
Right.
We did make the most of it, though, I will say.
I feel we did. I feel we did. The relationships and the friendships I got out of it would not trade them for sure.
100%.
So, for those who may not know me, I am Jason Schemmel. I've been in digital marketing and content marketing for the past 14 years. 11 of those were spent in corporate. Um, Currently, now I own my own digital marketing agency, as you can see in Get Social Done right there. There we go.
GSD.
GSD. I also have a podcast, which Erica has been on before, called the Get Done Chat. Also, GSD. You can see a recurring theme there. Yeah, and so I've most of my time has been spent in social media and marketing, advertising, organic content. But now we live in the day and age of AI, and there's always something new happening there.
Love it. So let's just dive right in and talk to me a little bit about how you're using generative AI just in your day to day workflows.
Sure. So it's I mean every day is kind of a new thing. It's a new task, a new prompt to go through and everything. But for the most part, I love using the large language models, the Chat GPTs, Claudes, Perplexities, more for ideation and research. I know a lot of people like to use it for content creation, which is fantastic when it's done right. But I have seen way too many people just copy and paste the responses that you get back from them, and I'm like, no, you're about halfway there, but you're not quite there.
Yeah.
So there's as we know, there's several different uses for AI, especially generative AI. There's custom GPTs being created. Every single day there's a new one popping up. And similar to social media algorithms, it's like as soon as you have a decent handle on a tool, there's a massive update and it throws everything for a loop. So, and I've given talks on AI and how to incorporate it into marketing. And so I like to start it off by just reminding everyone of where we are today and how we got here. So just thinking back to the internet days, try and imagine life without the internet right now. Like your Wi-Fi, your modem gets cut off, you probably feel lost. I'm sure if I talk to most people, you would rather lose electricity or access to water or something before you lost access to the internet. Like we are that dependent on it, and how it's not a utility in the U.S. right now is still beyond me. But I digress. But thinking back to the internet, doesn't matter if you have a brand, a business, an organization, whatever. If you don't have a presence online where someone can do their due diligence and look you up and even interact with you, you basically don't exist. You really
Yep.
don't, unless you meet with them face to face, which seems like a rarity nowadays, like in person networking and everything. It's unless you're at a conference, it's so rare. But like internet presence, if you don't have it, you basically don't exist to your audience. We're now starting to get into that day and age with AI, where if you're not utilizing AI in some capacity for your business, it doesn't always have to be just in a marketing capacity, but even just for business operations, ideation, research, figuring things out. If you're not using that to your advantage, then you're being left behind in the dust by your competition. Because earlier this year, I gave a keynote to a restaurant group down in Louisiana, Copeland's, fantastic food. If you're able to go down there, check it out. They wanted to know how they could use generative AI in their business. And so what was really nice for me is that it was able to push me outside of my boundaries of how I typically use it. So I'll start with that first. I use it again more for ideation and research. So as an agency, if I bring on a client, I need to figure out who they are in a more intimate level besides just talking to them, because everyone's always like, oh, my business is great, we do this, we do this. You ask them about their target market, their audience, and they give you the demographic side of it, but they don't go any deeper than that. You want to also get the psychographic side of it too, the hobbies, the interests, why they do this thing rather than that thing, why they're Apple users rather than Android users, vice
How their
versa,
brand
whatever.
voice is different from their competitors.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And that's where AI is fantastic too, especially Perplexity. So, and we'll get into all of this too. I'm kind of jumping everywhere, but Perplexity is fantastic for competitor research because it has that ability to do internet searches for you, whereas ChatGPT and Claude only have a knowledge base up to a certain date. Perplexity doesn't have that. It can actively search the internet for you. So if I was helping this client again, the restaurant business, and said, okay, I'm a restaurant chain down in Louisiana serving this type of food. They were primarily seafood. Um, you know, from there I could say, what are my top 10 competitors in this area? Because they had locations in Louisiana, Georgia, and I think Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I could list out those states and say, give me the top 10 competitors most comparable to this business, my client's business. And then it spat it right out. I'm like, this is fantastic. Now, then I can do, all right, let's start doing some menu comparisons. Let's find out where there's similarities and where there's differences too. So that way, again, it's all just part of research and figuring out what's there and what isn't there, and maybe finding some opportunities to maybe enhance business operations or find new ways to increase sales or decrease costs. And so there, I'm asking it to do this stuff, and it starts listing out similar, not always verbatim, but very similar food items in their menus. But the one thing I've definitely come to notice is that, especially when using AI, trust the information, but definitely verify.
Yep.
Definitely verify, because in some of the information it gave me, I would go and check that competitor's menu, their active menu, and the food item that the AI listed is not there. It was going off of an older version that it picked up. So how you can combat that, again, the great thing about Perplexity is that I can just download the PDF of that menu, or if a download option isn't available, I can literally just highlight it, copy and paste it, put it into the AI and say, okay, now using this version of the menu, compare it to my competitor or my clients, excuse me.
Yep.
And then it gives me that info, and now it's much more accurate, which is fantastic. So that's just one way how you can do some competitor research. Same thing with audience, because it, again, takes that information of, in these areas, give me the consensus information on the demographics of the people around here. How many are male compared to female, ethnicity, all that, age range, all that kind of stuff. There's so much AI can do. And then even with the ChatGPT and the Claude side of it, with custom GPTs, they're fantastic because it's a very specific, custom GPTs are primarily meant to serve one very specific need. And if you have that specific need that you're looking for, custom GPTs are great. If you need more of a broad but more conversational AI to talk to, that's where Claude really comes in and thrives. Whereas Perplexity, it's just more of a, I'm going to give it to you straight. Where Claude, you're going to have more of a conversation. You feel like you're actually talking to a chatbot, but a very knowledgeable chatbot, which is pretty nice.
Have you tried out any of the content marketing or AI for marketing specific custom GPTs? Because I know that we definitely have some mutual friends that had programs sub when that first became available.
I've used a couple. It's been a while since I've used them. In all honesty, I'm sorry, guys, but but for some of them, they were very useful at the time. So there were some where it would help me ideate topics for my content, where, because I know there's some custom GPTs out there where it's like, give me your audience, give me your business, your audience, and your your offer. And from there, it'll go, okay, based off of the information you've given me, these are topics that you should talk about, which is great, because then you can go from there, whether that be within GPT or you can bring it over to Claude or Perplexity and say, okay, I'm writing a blog, or I'm writing a social media post, something like that, on this topic. Help me write this out, or give me an outline of this, and then start breaking it down piece by piece. And you can really start building a very good, comprehensive piece of content based off of that.
What I've also really been hearing people talking about a lot is using the custom GPTs just for doing stuff like, having it be embedded with their brand voice and their style guide. And so that way you are ensured that, people are creating things with it that actually reflect, who your brand is and what you want to be known for.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's custom GPTs that definitely do that. Claude and Perplexity have their own versions of it. Claude has projects. Perplexity just came out with Spaces. And through that, you can upload past blogs that you've written, emails, transcripts from videos that you've recorded, or just uploading a document. You can upload all of the stuff that is your own voice, you writing this stuff out, and then tell it, hey, create a brand voice around this. Like, this is me, this is who I am, this is how I talk. Understand the tonality, the verbiage, the words that I use, everything. And then make sure that you use this same voice moving forward with any other content or responses that you give me. And that way you can ensure that any type of prompts you give it or questions you ask it, it's going to bring it back and it's going to give it back to you in your voice and your tonality, which is fantastic. But also know that, and this goes with any prompt, any question that you ask AI, the responses that you get, the quality of it and the depth of it is going to greatly depend on the amount of detail and context that you give it.
Yeah, that's actually something we were talking with Pam Didner
Mm-hmm.
recently about, because her books are both about that. One really kind of gives more of the high level overview for the for the marketing leader, and the other one
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of different marketing use case prompts. And it really, it was great to have her give some of those real life examples of just how much you can and should put into a prompt, because so many people think a good prompt is write a blog post on X topic, and that is absolutely the worst kind of a
It's
prompt.
terrible. It's absolutely
and,
terrible.
and it's going to give
I'll be the
you,
first to tell anyone that is, your prompt should not be 1 to 2 sentences unless you're looking for like a recipe of something. Like yesterday, I was baking my wife a cake for her birthday, and I'm like, I need to make frosting from scratch. Give me a recipe on how to do this. It's still something very specific, but when you're creating content, you have to be very detailed and provide a lot of context. And there's and Erica, if you'd like, I can go through it. There's a prompting framework that people can utilize to ensure that it's at least more detailed and more prepared to give them the information that they're looking for.
sure, I always love to hear what everybody's kind of workflow is for creating the prompts. So
Mm. And
let's have it.
this one might be more well known just because there's a couple of other people in the AI space who are like, they've monetized this, they've branded it, they've called it their own thing, and all of that stuff. I just kind of happened across it watching other people use AI and stuff. I'm like, I'm noticing a pattern of like, this is how you build out that first one. So think of AI as like this very knowledgeable, super smart kid in a sandbox, and you're trying to teach it, and it has this vivid, vast imagination, and you're trying to get it to build a very specific sandcastle, which is your piece of content that you're looking for it to build. So there's 4 primary parts that builds out this first prompt. The first thing is you got to tell it what role it's meant to play. So usually in this instance, you're like, you are an expert content marketer, you're an expert blog writer, you're an English major, something to that effect, something that's relevant to the task at hand that you're going to ask it to do. So first thing is you give it a job, and then you explain the context of, like, you start setting the parameters of this imagination world vision, whatever that you're gonna paint for it, and go, okay, you are an expert blog writing English major, blah blah blah. My company is this. This is our target market. We need to create content that's relevant and useful and valuable to these type of people who need to solve this type of problem. I need you to write me a blog about this topic. So first it's, you give it the job and then you start painting the scene, you start giving the scene of what you want it to do. And then you ask, and then you give it the task, you ask it what you want it to do. And then you always end it with, ask me any clarifying questions you need before proceeding. This works in ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, because now you've given the AI permission to ask you further clarifying contextual questions so that it has enough detail to give you the response back that you're looking for. Now, usually this will come back with about 5 to 10 extra questions for you, and you don't have to know the answers to all of them. You don't have to know the answers to any of them, really. If you know the answers, fantastic, you can answer them. If not, you just literally say, I don't know. It's not going to judge you. It's AI, it doesn't care. So ask it that, and then it's going to proceed with the task that you gave it, which is creating the piece of content. And so it'll spit it out, and usually it's like that, it'll be a piece of content that's about 70 to 80% of the way there. And then there's one extra step that I like to do. So after it gives you the information, there's a fifth step. Excuse me. And you literally give it these three words: critique the above. Three simple words that you're now giving the AI permission to critique its own work and tell you, this is where the information I gave you is strong, this is where it's impactful, and then here's a list of other things that we can do to optimize it or enhance it, or where there's opportunities for to make this piece of content stronger, which is great. So I like to do that. So it's the 4 steps: ask me clarifying questions, answer as many of them as I can to the best of my ability. It gives me the response, and then I'll say critique the above. And sometimes I'll even add to that and say critique the above, optimize for effectiveness, or to make it enticing, or things like that, to really drive home that call to action. And based off of that, you can get a really good piece of content that, again, you should not be copying and pasting as your own. You still need to go through it and edit the words, because even if you do give it your brand voice, odds are it's not going to be perfect. So again, you can trust that the information is good, but definitely verify.
And it's just, it's not a human. It doesn't have life experiences. It doesn't have personal anecdotes and all
Mm-hmm.
of those things that make, content personal and human and interesting. You still have to add that in.
Exactly.
So there's no getting around that. It can
Yeah.
help you with the in-between bits, but you
You
still
can
have to
give it
bring
as
those
much of
great
your
stories.
personality as you want and as you're able to. It's still not going to capture you fully.
Totally. I really like the suggestion of approaching it in that kind of more conversational way where you're setting things up and then you're asking it to ask you questions. So that way, things that you didn't think about that could impact the output, that you're asking it, hey, what else would you need to know to make this be a really great piece of content?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, especially if it's a piece of content where you haven't gone on that direction before, or it's going really deep into something, you don't necessarily even know what your reader wouldn't know. But because you've given that information to the AI and explained who your audience is and the objective of the piece that you're doing, it can help flag that kind of stuff to you that you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't take for granted. Because the more experience you have with a topic, the longer you're in an industry, the harder it is to remember that people don't know what
Oh,
some of these
yes.
acronyms mean or what some of these very particular specific words
Mm-hmm.
mean. So it can be so helpful to have the AI be able to do that for you.
Oh, absolutely. There was a time I wrote a blog for my brand, and I first wrote it out myself, and then I asked AI to write it on the same topic, and admittedly, it sounded better. It hurt a little bit, but it sounded better. And then I'm like, all right, I had to think of it from that perspective. I'm like, I have years of experience, and I'm trying to reach people who don't have a lot of experience in this realm, because
Yep.
like my agency's target market is home service business owners, like the roofers, plumbers, HVAC people who are very hands on. They're not as technologically savvy, and they're wonderful, hardworking people, but their way of marketing is, I provide this service. If you need it done, call me.
Yep.
Like, as a marketer, you're like, not quite. Like, that's
Why should
great.
I call you and not the other dude that left me a flyer on my door?
Oh, exactly. Oh, the amount of people just within the amount of home service businesses just within a 10-mile radius who say they're the number one in the city or the region, whatever. And you're like, you and 10 other people. There's nothing differentiating you. But keeping that in mind, these are people who don't know how to properly promote themselves and differentiate themselves from their competition. And I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozzi. I've read his books and everything, and then realizing that his books and his content, even on social media and everything, it's very simplified. He purposefully talks at like a third or fourth grade reading level. And so that's a prompt that I'll give AI. Like, now take this content that we've put together and rewrite it at a third to fourth grade reading level. And then I also make sure to put the detail in there, not to be demeaning or to insult their intellect or anything like that. Because if you tell it to write in a third to fourth grade reading level and just leave it at that, it's going to read like you're literally talking to a third grader or fourth grader. It's going to be very like you are going to offend people. So, but in giving it this prompt saying, rewrite it at a third to fourth grade reading level, again, not to offend or insult intellect or anything like that, but just make it very easy to understand. And then watch the content that it spits out, and you're like, that's actually a really good way to do it, because at any level, it's super easy to understand. It brings in examples, so that way it takes real life applications that most people would have, and then it helps just make sense of the content and the topic that you're trying to drive home, especially if it's complex.
I love all of that because, again, let it help you. You know, you can provide it with the insights, with the know-how, and then have it help you reach your right audience and simplify what you're doing. Those are such great AI use cases.
Mm-hmm.
One of my other favorite AI use cases is around creating derivative content. So taking, you know, a blog post or an ebook or a video transcript and creating other content. And what I got to tell you, people were really talking about at Content Marketing World when I was just there. People were talking about using the AI to create derivative content that was either like a podcast or a video or imagery from the text. So I'd love to hear some of your experiences with that, including some of the tools you may have used.
Oh, yes. Yep. So probably my favorite thing to use AI for is for ideation, just like that. Even if it's taking existing content topics that are out there, and then plugging it into AI, going, hey, this is a hot topic. A lot of people are talking about this. What are other similar yet relevant topics could I be talking about to take advantage of, striking while the iron is hot on whatever topic this is? Doesn't matter what niche, what industry you're in, doesn't matter. If you find out that people, or if you find a competitor or an ad that's really going off and everything, you can take advantage of that by literally copying and pasting that content or downloading it, uploading it into the AI, and then go, based off of this is high converting, high engaging content. What other topics should I consider creating, writing, talking about that are similar to this, that this type of audience would eat up? And you can easily get 10 to 15 topics just like that, depending on how long. You can constantly ask it, what are 10 topics? Okay, now give me 10 additional topics, and just keep going and going and going. But it's a great way to do it. And then even with like image creation and stuff, I know Midjourney is probably still the household AI image creator and stuff. My favorite image creation AI tool is Ideogram. I have found that the prompts I can give it can be as simplistic or as detailed as I want. Even if they're very generic, if I'm not quite sure what I want to create yet, but I have kind of an idea, I can put, when I'm able to formulate into words into the prompt, and tell it, okay, let's start with that. And then, a few seconds later, it'll spit out 4 images. I'm like, all right, of the 4, maybe this one is kind of along the lines, not these here. I can take that one and then tell it to reimagine it again. So create 4 new ones based off of this one that I liked. And then there's a feature, I think it's called Magic Prompt. Excuse me. Where it will give you the additional details that it created itself based off of the idea that you gave it. And that way you can see the more expanded, detailed prompt. And then from there, you can go, okay, I like this part, and this part. I don't like that one. So I can copy and paste that prompt, put it into the new one, and then add and take out any details that I want. So for someone like me, where it's very difficult to create something from scratch, whether that be an AI photo, Photoshop, whatever, I am terrible because I'm too much of a perfectionist, where I'm like, I like this little bit, no, this little bit, no. Creating something from scratch for me is like pulling my hair out. But I've noticed that if someone was to give me a piece that's already started and go, how can we make this better? Then I can start visualizing everything, because I'm like, all right, this is along the lines of what you were thinking, what you were going for. Here's how we can make this better. And actually, at an event earlier this year, I was explaining that to someone. I'm like, I don't know I don't know what to call it. Again, I can't create stuff from scratch, but I can always enhance it and make it better after the first version or the first few versions of it have been created. And the guy stepped back and goes, that's it though. You're a creative enhancer. I'm like, son of a gun. I've never thought of that before. But ideogram is perfect for someone like me in that instance, because again, I can create something, I can take something very generic where I'm not quite sure where I'm going with it yet, give it the prompt, have it create me 4 images, and then show me the more detailed prompt that it used to create all of that. And then I can start tinkering with it until I get to an image that I'm very satisfied with. And the other thing I love about ideogram is that its capability and accuracy to do letters and wording in their images is second to none. I have not seen a better AI tool that can insert words and letters and number and typography into an AI image better than ideogram. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. I would say that, while I use Canva for a lot of
Canva's great
things,
too.
their AI still really struggles with words or numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You get some pretty funny
Oh yeah. Oh,
spellings or ideas.
I have seen some crazy stuff out of Canva, Midjourney, ideogram, all of that stuff. But yeah, you want to talk about word accuracy in an AI image? Try ideogram, and it will knock your socks off.
Have you used any of the AI tools that can create video content or podcast content?
I've dabbled a little bit in the video content, not a ton, but I've seen what other people have been able to create with it. And it's mind blowing how sometimes it is almost too accurate. It's almost too lifelike. It's a little scary. That part about AI kind of scares me, because it's like I'm already skeptical of most of the stuff I see on the internet as it is. But now, especially with like TikTok is one of the biggest social media platforms, and you're constantly seeing stuff up there, and you're like, I'm not sure if this is a real person or not.
Yeah.
Like it's getting to the point now where I'm looking all around my phone trying to find like the small defects that you wouldn't normally notice. I'm like, does this person's movement seem natural? They actually have all 5 fingers instead of 6 or 7. So that's not a dead giveaway anymore. Like the ears are appropriately placed and all that stuff. So it's like, now it's more, I find myself focusing more on the character as a whole, going, are their movements natural? Do they blink at a regular rate? Things like that. And that's how I'm able to kind of decipher if it's AI or not. But yeah, I haven't done too much of it myself, but I've seen some pretty impressive stuff.
Well, in the recap, we'll include some links to Ideogram and to some of the other tools too. So that way, if this conversation has gotten you excited about trying some things out, we'll share some of the things that, some examples with you as well. Because I think it can be really fun for people to see examples from other content creators and content marketers. So that way they can get ideas for how they can put it to use within their organizations too.
Mm-hmm. Best thing about ideogram too is that they have a free version, so I think you can get 10 prompts for free per day. So
Nice.
If you want to just dabble and try it out, you don't need a subscription. You can just go right in there. I think you just have to log in with your Google account, and yeah, you get 10 free prompts, which is pretty nice.
Very cool. I know I'm going to go try that out after this.
Mm-hmm. And then if you're like me, I have like 7 or 8 Google accounts. So after I use up 10 on one, I just switch over to another one, and then I get 10 more free.
You shouldn't have told them your secret. They're going to start trying to put cookies onto your computer.
If ideogram starts cracking down on that, I'm sorry, everyone. It's my fault.
Be like, we know whose fault it was. Jason Show. One of the other use cases that I think you had talked to me about was about how AI tools can take your owned data, your proprietary customer data, to identify content opportunities.
Yes. So this part was also really intriguing. This goes back to the restaurant that I was helping. Because part of what I wanted to show them with AI was how they can optimize business operations, enhance business operations, increase sales, decrease costs, and then create content and find marketing opportunities based off of that. And so when I had asked them for some information, they were a little apprehensive at first, which is understandable. It's AI. It's still new. We're still not quite sure where data security and all of that stuff lie. But they were able to share with me a couple of documents, one of them being their previous quarter's sales and also their previous quarter's labor costs as well. So all of their staff, all of the different shifts, who worked, who didn't work, who was let go to go home early, all of that stuff. And so it's just two spreadsheets. I primarily used Claude for this one at the time. Now I would definitely use Perplexity, but at the time I used Claude. Uploaded the spreadsheets to it, and then told Claude, "You are my business analyst expert." So again, giving it that role, and said, "We are helping this restaurant chain, and our goals are to enhance business operations, find opportunities to increase sales, decrease costs, things like that." And so again, painting the picture, and then said, based off of the data and information that I have uploaded, scan this info and give me 5 areas on where we can meet these goals. And again, told it to ask me any clarifying questions. And so it came back with about 8 questions, primarily around the restaurant itself, like what's their target market, what's their average sales, and all that stuff. And I didn't know most of it, so I was only able to answer 1 or 2 of them, but the rest of them I just said I don't know. And then it came back and it gave me five very good examples immediately, going, here's an area where you can improve. Here's another area you can improve. Here's another one. And what I noticed was that two out of the 5 of them focused on the morning shift. So there were discrepancies in that there was more labor in than sales were coming in. It just didn't balance out. There were discrepancies. And so the next prompt I gave it, still within that thread, so it still had all of that information and the spreadsheets themselves. I said, give me a scheduling outline, or it was something along those lines. I'm noticing that the AM shifts have the most discrepancies compared to sales. And then I said, give me, I think it was 5 more ideas on how we can optimize this and help this so that we can balance out the discrepancies, which would lead to increased sales while decreasing costs, while not sacrificing efficiency. And then right away, it gave me 5 more. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is great. And then I showed the executive group of this, and they go, holy smokes, we never even thought of that. And I didn't know if they were going to take the idea or not, but it's still good to know that these are ideas that you can take back and try to implement yourselves. It's not to say that if you do this, this will make things better. It's not like a Field of Dreams things. If you do this, it's a guaranteed success or anything, but it's a great way to ideate different things that you may not have considered before, just based off of the data that you have at hand, which is fantastic. And then after that, I started asking it more marketing questions, like, okay, what things should we focus on marketing to help drive up sales and things like that? And then looking at the cost sheet, it said, we noticed that these dishes tend to sell more in the morning, and these other dishes tend to sell really good in the evening time on these days. It was like a Wednesday, Thursday kind of thing. Days you wouldn't typically think about. You'd think for restaurants, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the best sales days for most of their items. But for a couple of their dishes, earlier in the week were better sales days. And so that gave them the idea of, okay, we should push these dishes as specials on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so they started creating promotional items and promotional marketing things based off of that. And I got back in touch with them about a month ago, and they have seen a slight uptick in sales based off of that.
That's really cool.
Right?
Because it's like, I mean, even if it's as simple as, Taco Tuesday is a holiday that many of us, an observance that many of us participated. But like one of my favorite restaurants here in Sacramento has a burger special on Thursdays. And it's clearly that kind of thing, that Thursdays were otherwise slow, but they found people were coming in and having burgers. And so they used that data to create, a marketing opportunity for themselves. It's like, okay, if people are already ordering this on Thursdays, let's have them come back every Thursday, and let's have them bring more folks by having special burgers you can only get on those Thursdays.
Yeah,
and
just on that day.
It is so smart, because all you literally have to do is take that sales data and, ask AI to look for non-obvious patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you found something interesting. And it can also be that maybe you didn't know that there's some sort of weekly event that happens near you, and that people either are coming in, to your place of business before or after those events, or you just never know. But AI can pretty quickly find some of those patterns in pretty large data sets, that, we may have, anecdotally come across, but it can actually do it in a more structured manner. I'm having the office is revolting here, as you can see. The often my colleagues, my furry colleagues, are just being a little bit of a pest. Thank you,
It's
Bullfar.
bound to happen. But yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's one of the great things that I found out with AI is that for the most part, as business owners, as marketers, we all know that data driven results are probably going to be the best results, especially when your market is humans and people, because people are irrational. You can't always predict what they're going to do. Consumer psychology only goes so far, but the numbers never lie. So if you have all of this data that you can upload into AI and go, help me make sense of this. What does this mean? Can you break this down in a way that makes sense? And can you give me ideas on how to optimize this, utilize this information to make my business better, make my offers and my services better for my clients? You'd be surprised at the amount of information that you're going to get back. And the best thing of all, it's going to do it in a fraction of the time it would take you to do it.
Love that. Now, what I think happens frequently is people will decide that they want to try out AI, and they will either, go over to Bing, or, use Google's Gemini or ChatGPT, whatever that thing is that they've heard about the most,
Mm-hmm.
or that they have somebody near them who will be like, here's a thing I did in this tool. So they'll try it out, and then they'll kind of just stick with it. But what I've noticed about, what I've seen you post about, and, this reflects how I use it as well, these different tools actually have better results for different kinds of activities, such as some are better, with things that are number calculations and doing data insights. Others are better at, generating content. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around the different tools and how you
Mm-hmm.
think content marketers can best put them to use.
Yeah. So again, completely agree. Every tool has its strength and its weakness. Um, Now, in terms of like Gemini and Copilot, I'm not fans of them. Um, Google has Gemini. I'm really surprised that they haven't made that better compared to what Perplexity can do. Just because Gemini has the access to Google search the internet, where Perplexity has pretty much everything else. Um, and then same with Microsoft's Copilot. Now, as bigger companies that use a lot of Microsoft products, Copilot can be useful in terms of retrieving information from Teams chats, emails, documents, and things like that. But outside of that, I haven't seen a good use case of Copilot. So the big three in my mind are GPT, Claude, and Perplexity. Perplexity for me is number one. I had a GPT subscription until I came across Perplexity, realized what it could do, and I'm like, this is a no brainer. It costs the same monthly $20 a month as ChatGPT, and you're telling me that on the free version, Perplexity can search up to 5 sources on the internet and use all of that information in conjunction with the response it's going to give you, and it's going to cite specifically the piece of content that it's pulling that information from in its response. And then if you use the paid version, it goes up to 20, and then you get access to a whole bunch of other stuff too. So for me, Perplexity is king. Claude is my next one because it's more conversational, it's more analytical, and it's a bit more detailed in the responses that you give it. But again, it's great, but no AI is perfect, and
Yep.
it's always trust but verify. And I'll give another story on that in a sec. And then ChatGPT, I primarily use for custom GPTs. And the best thing about that is you don't need a subscription to use custom GPTs, as long as you get access to them. Some custom GPTs are free. Others, people will build them out for a very specific function, and they'll probably sell those for anywhere between 10, $20, something like that, depending on the problem they're solving. But if you find someone giving away a custom GPT that fits a need that you have, absolutely grab it. And GPT is fantastic for that. But again, for the expanded use that I use it for a multitude of things. Perplexity and Claude are my 1 and 2. And yeah, one other use case I had was Again, going back to the restaurant and proving that AI is great but not always perfect. Um, they had a loyalty program, and I didn't ask for customer data just because that's intimate information that they were trusted to just keep um, within their organization. But I was able to get the fields of information that they would ask for. So name, location, was it average ticket item cost, how likely they are to come back, all of that stuff. And I was able to take all of the fields, copy and paste that into Claude. This one was Claude, and I said, all right, based off of these fields, build me a made up loyalty program, and just fill in all of the fields with very real sounding information and data. So it's like don't get too far fetched in the information, but build me a makeshift loyalty program, just so that way I can start running some test prompts and things like that after it. And it took a couple of tries, but it gave me a full fledged thing, which I'm like, this is awesome. I suddenly in 5 minutes I have this loyalty program of 50 very made up people with all of this data point and stuff. And from there, I could show off what Claude and Perplexity can do. And one of the things was, I said, all right, taking this loyalty program list, just give me the people in here that spend an average of, I think it was $75 per visit, and are rated at least 80% higher chance, 80% or higher chance of coming back to dine with us again within a week. And again, 50 people, and it spat out 18, and it showed me all of the numbers. And as it's loading up all of the numbers, I noticed that two of them don't fit the criteria. They had $100 in the sheet. They had $100 average spend, but their likelihood of coming back was only 50%, not the 80. And the funny thing was, and I point this out because at the end of, it's giving me all the information, then it gives you like a little paragraph synopsis of here's everything you asked for. Claude literally put in there, we know that there's two people in there that don't fit the criteria, but we put them in there because they have $100 average spend and stuff. And then it literally asked me at the end of that, would you like me to update this and remove those two people? And all I put was
Nice.
yes. And it said, all right. Claude literally said, after I said yes, I said, I apologize for doing that. Here's your list again, 16 names of exactly what I'm looking for. You want to talk about conversational? Claude's good for that. But
That's
again,
awesome.
trust but verify.
That's awesome. And I just want to chime in and say, I love Perplexity because it tells you where it got the information. One of my favorite use cases for it is, when I'm working with a client that has a thought leadership program, or they're wanting to start one, I'll go there and I will ask Perplexity, what is, and, pick whichever, primary executive is going to be the kind of the center of their program. Say, what is this person's, what are they known for?
Mm-hmm.
And if, the results that turn up are not for that person at this organization, then I'll refine it and ask more specifically, okay, within X industry, what is this person known for? And the thing is if it turns up nothing over and over, then that tells you that you haven't done a very good job of getting your thought leader out there and sharing their perspectives, because
Mm-hmm.
it should know. And then I always give them, I'm like, so for an example, I'll go, who is Erica Heald? And it will pop up and it will tell you, who I am, what I'm known for. And it will show you that it's not just citing my website, that it's citing, places where I've been interviewed. It's
Yep.
citing, the Content Marketing Institute, i.e., it's showing you that these are real third-party sites where it's getting the information from. So that way you're able to do that verifying right there. And you can
Mm-hmm.
click to make, to go through to see that it is a real site. But they just make it so easy for you to be able to trust the information that you get by going that extra step and putting that verification right there, versus ChatGPT. It will make up sources. So it'll even make up the URLs.
Oh yeah.
And I
Oh yeah.
love that. It's hilarious. Cause like, yeah, it sounds like something, this citation sounds like something McKinsey would have, but you
Mm-hmm.
click on it and it doesn't exist. And then you, search and it never has existed. And
Yep.
you're like, okay. So it's a little tricky sometimes.
Again, trust but verify. But yeah, Perplexity is great because whatever piece of content that it pulled for you in its response, it'll put a number right next to it, and you can click on that, and it'll take you directly to the URL from that piece of content that it took it from, so you can verify that it exists and that it's real. Or if you just want to get more information from that source, you can go right to it and consume it that way, which is really cool. And it reminds me that there's a newer, I should say, term and thing that people are going after called generative engine optimization, GEO, where it's creating content that's meant to be found by AI sources like Perplexity, where they can pull it and use that in information, where people are searching information where the topic, oh my gosh, words. We're getting to the end of the day, at least in my side of things. But generative engine optimization compared to SEO and search engine optimization. So you create topics based off of keywords, key phrases. So you hope to get found and you start ranking in those. That's been around for years. Generative engine optimization is creating content very similar to SEO, but it's more meant to be found by AI tools like Perplexity, so they can start sourcing those as their information. So if someone's looking for a piece of information that you've written about, then ideally GEO would help pull that information compared to your competitors and use that as part of the answer rather than someone else's.
Love it. There's just so many opportunities. It'll be interesting too to see when some of these generative AI tools start allowing marketers to juice those responses and make sure that their content
It's
comes to the
only a
top.
matter of time where you can start paying to have your content featured over someone else's. It's just a
Yep.
matter of time.
Just be watching for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely fascinating. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing with everybody some of your favorite use cases. And we'll be putting the recap up soon on the blog, and that'll include links. So be sure to give us some of your favorite links that we can sprinkle through to augment the transcript. And until then, for folks who are watching this live on LinkedIn or the recap on LinkedIn for that matter, where can people find you if they want to hear more about you and what you do and learn how to get more social done?
Yep. So Facebook and LinkedIn are pretty much where I live now. So just looking at my name, Jason Schemmel, Schemmel. I should be the first one up. I can't remember if I have any other doppelgangers remaining, evil twins, anything like that. Either that or getsocialdone.com is my website. You can find me there. And yeah, if you have any questions, if there's anything about AI you don't understand, I'm an open book. I love helping people out. Just reach out.
Love it. Thanks again for being our guest, and everybody else. Until next time, keep on making sure you're not having any random acts of content. Bye, guys.
Bye.